I'm Dan Morris, you're watching Boast and Dan Bushcraft, and today you're joining me once again from inside my lovely bushcraft cave, which is in fact Matilda's garage, Matilda being the camperman, for those of you that don't know. Now today I've got a bit of a rehash of an old idea. Call it bushcraft, call it prepping, call it what you like. It's an idea I've come up with, well, half of the idea I think I've come up with, the other half something we've all probably seen a million times everywhere else. But it is an answer to a question that I keep seeing on videos that I'm watching of other people and stuff, and the question is stoves, particularly those of you making a actual location, a bushcraft spot, be it permanent, semi-permanent, whatever. Excuse me, for those of you that always have to carry a stove in and therefore carry it back out, I've come up with an idea that's cheap, potentially free, very effective. Doesn't really matter if it gets stolen or anything like that, because it doesn't really cost you much. You can leave it at your location and it's pretty rainproof, so it should be a good idea. That is assuming it is my idea. I haven't done too much research to see if anybody else has come up with the same thing. It's just popped into my head one day and I thought, this looks like a good idea. So the idea starts with these things. Tuna can stoves. That is an old tuna can with a couple of circles of cardboard in it, filled with old candle wax, and it works basically like a giant candle. I have made these before many times, and these are nothing new. They're not my idea. I imagine if you're watching this, you're interested in bushcraft, you'll have definitely seen these things before. Not my idea. Brilliant for lighting fires, boiling water, and other such things. What is my idea, or at least what I believe to be my idea, like I say, I'm not sure if other people have done this yet or not. As far as I know, it's something I've just pulled out of my brain, is to turn it into a 2-burner stove. Because these are really good, really reusable, really waterproof, really dirt cheap, really easy to make. You can be a prepper and make loads of them, store them under your kitchen sink so they're ready when you need them. But I think they'd also make quite an efficient little stove. A stove that you wouldn't mind if you left it on location. It gets wet, someone finds it, pinches it, whatever, it's not really a big deal. So while we're in the garage, it's time to do a little bit of makery. Now, this could be absolutely free to you if you have a few things lying around, such as lump of wood. My lump of wood is actually bamboo. I think it was an old cheese board from a couple of Christmases ago. It's been rattling around in the garden with no real purpose to its existence, and I haven't really known what I was going to do with it. So now I do. A couple of empty tuna cans, some cardboard, some stub ends of old candles you no longer need, a load of screws, and a drill or screwdriver. If you have all of these things lying around at your disposal, then this is going to be completely free. If not, you're going to have to invest a couple of quid, but it will still be fairly cheap for something that is going to be super effective. Now, what I'm going to do is, instead of just having the tuna can, I'm going to make it into a 2-burner system. So you've got somewhere to boil water, you've got somewhere to, I don't know, cook your soup or fry whatever it is that you are intending on cooking whilst you're in the woods. Because we are in the garage though, I do apologise if the camera angles are sometimes a bit weird. It is quite difficult in here to get the camera angles quite spot on. I've got quite limited floor space, so yeah, we'll work with it and see how we get. Anywho, off to the build. So a few issues that I've already decided upon while I'm sitting here is my lovely little cheese board, or whatever it is quite a thin piece of wood, so I'm going to have to be quite careful not to just go straight through the bottom of it and screw it to the actual table that I'm working on, as that would be a little bit on the irritating side. Now, what I want to do is have these two spaced wide enough apart that I can actually get the pans or kettles or whatever it is I'm planning on using spaced on, so they fit, basically. All that waffle for me to just basically say, so they actually do fit where I want them to go. So firstly things firstly, I'm just going to put 4 screws around each can just to hold the can in place so it isn't sliding about when I'm using the thing. Now this is bamboo. Bamboo is a really tough old material, so I am just going to pilot the holes a little bit first, otherwise it's just going to all split out on me. So that's number 1. Screws set so that thing it can slip about and move around easy, because I don't want it flying off anywhere, but also just so that it can come back out for replacement, or if you need to refill it, anything like that. Really what I would like to do is get some really teeny weeny screws and put them in there to just raise that off the wood a little bit, so that when it gets right down to the very bottom of the wax it doesn't scorch the wood. I don't really need to do that today, to be honest, because this thing's bamboo, and bamboo doesn't set fire to it particularly easy like that. It would put up with quite a high heat anyway. But for anybody making one, it's not a bad idea to have something underneath there to just lift it off the wood to stop it scorching it and, excuse me, turning it into charcoal, smouldering it. You could just use some rolled up tin foil or something like that. I did think I'd got some really short little screws, but I can't seem to find them. I don't know where they've gone. But for today's purposes, it doesn't really matter. Right, there's my 2 cans secured in place. Can't slide about or go anywhere there. This board's a little bit thin, really. I'd like a thicker board. My screws are, in some cases, just poking out the bottom. Depending on where you are and what you're using this on, what sort of surface you're using on, though, that actually gives it quite a good bit of grip. It doesn't get slide about, so that isn't a bad thing for me. But you can see the idea so far. 2 burners on this jobby. Now, what are we standing this pan on? Well, screws. Obviously, that's why I have the other bag. Nay, where are we? Here we go. The longer jobbies. Now, the size of these bad boys is not accidental. Yeah, the size that I have chosen. What size are these? If in doubt, measure it. 3-inch screws, lovely. Now, the reason I've used or chosen 3-inch screws is about the height that I want my pans and things to sit above the actual burners. I was messing about with it the other day with the kettle, lifting it up and down on the flame, and it seemed to me that you get the most efficient and cleanest usage out of it by having your pan about 1 inch off the flame, which is why I chose 3 inches, because we're all in with the height of the tuna can and the thickness of the board. The 3-inch screw gives me just about 1 inch above it, which is where you seem to get your best burn quality. So by all means, as always guys, experiment yourselves, see if you find anything different than what I'm saying. You might have a quick play with your device and think, actually 1.25 inches, 1.5 inches, whatever distance you think's best. So for my pot holder screws, just going to pilot a hole in. And like I say, you guys can go really mega neat about all of this if you want to. Draw little specific grids on it and stuff. I am just going to bang it in by eye, because to me this is a prepper stove. It just needs to work. So I think by eye will add that rustic charm. So, drop a kettle on. Bit too much of a wobble, that back one wants coming back out a bit. I'm just using the kettle at the moment to adjust it to make sure I've got a little bit of contact on the pan with all of the screws. I don't want it, I mean, it doesn't matter if there's a slight gap. Oh, there you go, that's all 4 in contact. Doesn't matter if there's a slight gap on one of the screws, but what I don't want is for it to be massively rattly. So we still need, which one? You at the back corner there. Him can go down just a tickle more. And this is how you tune your stove. Oh, there we go. All 4 screws contacting on that one. Just one to come up on this one. I apologise for the sheer scale of that kettle. That obviously isn't the sort of kettle that I would be using in the woods. It's massive. It's Matilda's, the campervan's kettle. And I use it in the garage because if I leave it on top of the paraffin heater over there, it never gets that hot that it actually boils and whistles on top of that paraffin heater, but it does get it and keep it hot enough to make a brew, to make a coffee. So just that one down a tickle, I think. And like I say, it's up to you how obsessive you get over this leveling process. It's level enough for me. I'm obviously now becoming quite obsessive about this. Right, that's as level as it needs to be. Pretty much decent screw contact there. So you can see, quite simply, basically 16 screws, and we've got there nice and solid, locked in place, not going anywhere. And your pans are going to stand on those screws for you and hold them at, I think I've got that right. That does look to be roughly, yeah, it's a tickle over an inch. Just about good enough. I should get a nice flame spread. What I found with it when I was playing around with the heights, if it's too far away, you end up with the flame all bunching up under the middle of it and it smokes like hell. If it's too close, it starts to choke it and put it out. If it's just about the right distance, the flame hits the bottom of the pan and spreads like a gas cooker, so you get a real nice coverage of the pan. You get your best heat out of that. Pretty much what you need. Now the next part, which I think's the really clever part, it's just part of the idea that appeared into my brain. We need an extra 4 holes. Where's my drill? Right in the corners. Or as close to your corners as you can get. I'm not gonna tell you why it's the clever bit yet. See if you can guess. Ooh, what's Bosun Dan doing? You guys probably don't think I'm any different, but I've watched a couple of my recent videos back and watched myself and gone, Dan, there's a few moments where you're a bit weird, mate. That's what are you doing? Looking at the camera, go, ooh. So these, this is where we do need to get a little more obsessive, because they want to be, this drill head, this screw head on this drill is absolutely kippered, and I know I've got a load of new ones somewhere, I just don't know where they are at the moment. So these are going to become slightly impromptu feet on mine, because I need them to be just a little lower than the actual pot carriers. Yeah, so they are going to stick out the bottom. Two schools of thought on that for me. I can either leave them there because they're quite effective grippers for when I set it down on something, or when I've finished doing all this and made this video, what I could do is take it outside, get the grinder out, and just whip across the bottom with the grinder so they're flat and smooth. But I did say a minute ago, having started building this, you would perhaps be better with a thicker piece of wood than this really thin cheeseboard bamboo thing. But that's why I'm doing it for you now, is so when you guys do it, you can get it right first time. Ain't I nice? I'm having a lot of fun. I like building things. So I imagine you're thinking, right, hang on a minute, you said this is the clever part, and really all you've done is banged an extra 4 screws in it. What makes that clever? About to show you I am. Nice and secure. Another ingredient into this marvellous bushcraft pie that we're making. An old favourite of mine, always a useful thing of me, tin foil. Has anybody guessed yet what we might be doing with tin foil and 4 extra screws? You're probably not, but I've just got this image in my head of people yelling at the monitors and phones. It's this, it's that. Probably not. That's what's happening in my imagination. So fold it up. Neat as you can. Wrap it around your first screw, and with the addition of something like a paper clip, just to hold that in place, because what we've done there, I'm sure by this point you've already got it, we've made ourselves a windshield. So we can put that to the wind. Wind's going to come in here. If you need to, you can obviously add a couple of extra screws to stabilize this. And the idea being, simply all this is going to do is just help keep a little bit of wind out and just make it a little easier to control, really. Obviously some wind is going to make it through because you need to leave a little space because you need to let the flames out, but that will control some of the wind for you. Too much wind's obviously going to blow your flame everywhere. It's going to be even smokier and dirtier, and the more that the wind's blowing your flames about, the less efficient it's going to be. La-di-da, there we go. So aside from mine needing a bit of refinement, as in whipping the bottoms of these screws off and stuff, that is your base idea. An extra paper clip wouldn't go amiss there just to tidy it up, but that's it, really. Keeps the wind out, keeps it nice. We've got 2 burners. Well, we haven't, because I haven't made the other one yet, but la-di-da. La-di-da. What I need to do though is make the second burner, and that's if my wax has melted over there. And the second burner is another one of the times where I think I've been clever. I might not have been clever, but I think I have. It's just an idea. I'm making it sound like I've put oodles and oodles of thought into this. I haven't. When I have an idea, it's just blinding flash on the road to Damascus, and my brain plans everything out in absolute seconds, and it just goes, boff, there's an idea. Don't know why. Be some reason or other why I think like that, but I'll tell you now. I'm not keeping you in suspense. You can see how this burner, I've got a couple of swirls. That's obviously more wick area. You're going to get a bigger flame. It's going to consume fuel faster. Bigger flame isn't always what you want for cooking, is it? That's the thing. So this one that's got a heck of a lot of wick, that's going to produce a heck of a lot of heat. That's my water boiling one. that's what I'm going to have for when I'm making a brew. Because when you're making a brew, you want as much heat as possible, get your water boiled as quick as you can, because you just want a brew. You're not trying to slow cook it. This one, however, what I'm going to do is do one outer ring, no inner wick, and see if that's a bit cooler for cooking purposes. You know, if you're making a soup or a stew, you don't want to boil it to the bottom of your pan by having it too hot. So this will be an outer wick. Now I've also had the idea if you could make a smaller burner still with the addition of a staple gun to hold your cardboard in a ring until the wax hardens. You could just have a central wick ring in the middle there and have probably a lesser burner still. So it is kind of like a 4-burner grill, depending on how you make your wicks, or at least that's what I've got in my mind. I imagine that would work exactly like that. It's no different than lamps or anything. Smaller your wick, smaller your flame, smaller the heat. Bigger wick, bigger flame, bigger heat. So the one with your multi-wick, excuse me, a bit windy today, I don't know what that's about. That's my water boiling flame. This one with just the outer wick, cooking flame. But I haven't made it yet. So that's what you want. So as it's just protruding out of the top of your can, not by a massive amount, but I don't know, a few mil really, just so you can light it. Now, what I need is wax. I don't know if it's melted yet. Really not got the time to wait for the heater to melt this, so we'll cheat. Quick tip for you when you are melting wax. I'm brushing it with a blowtorch, but I'm doing my best to spread the heat around as much as possible. When you are melting wax, do it slowly. Treat it like chocolate. I think is it something like 50 Celsius is about as hot as you should really melt chocolate with, because it burns it, it scorches it, and it ruins the flavour. Similar thing happens with wax, but it doesn't ruin the flavour. What it does is it evaporates certain oils out. So there's different types of waxes. Generally, candles are mostly paraffin wax. And if you boil it, it starts to evaporate those flammable oils out of it, and it will get thicker and thicker. When it hardens, it will become much thicker and a lot stiffer, which it will still burn, but it won't burn as bright or as hot. And it can be quite a bit more difficult to light it in cold weather, when obviously in cold weather the wax becomes even further still. So do your best not to boil it. I'm just using this because it's quick. But the more you boil it, the more you damage it, and the harder it is to actually burn that wax. You can reverse that process. You can add paraffin back into it in small quantities to thin it back up. I've done that before when I used to do bits of candle making here and there. I say candle making, it was more candle recycling. But you can add paraffin oil to it and thin it back up. So all I'm going to do is tip that into my stove so it soaks into the wick. As usual, all my lovely bits of towel that I would usually have lying around aren't here because I need them, and that is going to be ridiculously hot. What have I got? Something else that I've found that's quite a handy thing as well is when your wax starts getting low in either of them, when you've been burning it for a while and your wax starts getting low, you can just drop broken tea lights in there and they'll melt straight back in and top it up like that. And you get it that way, it'll get it to last a heck of a lot longer. It smells great. It's a mixture of all sorts of different candles that I've had the wax from. So there's like Christmas candles, flavoured candles, all sorts in there. So it smells really good. So my smaller burner hasn't quite set yet. The larger one has. It's set enough that it should be okay. Now lighting it does take a little time for the flame to grow. Let that get growing. Isn't that pretty? And then slam that kettle on somewhere in the middle. I'm just going to have a look down here, check the flame spread. Oh, that's pretty good. Pretty central. Come with me. There we go. Look at that. You see how it's spreading out? Sitting there quite nicely. Lovely. So a bit of balancing and change. I don't know, actually, it's pretty much in the middle. So you can see at the moment, excuse me, it is not super smoky. Although they do smoke really bad when you blow them out. I'll talk about blowing them out a little later on, because that's a bit of a thing. To be honest, you're perhaps better using tin foil or something else, making a little snuffer to just put on top of them more than anything. It's probably a much. So that's with number 2 burner lit as well, so both burners are lit, and you probably can't tell as well as I can because I've been messing with them for a little while, but that one's definitely a hotter flame with the internal coil, and that one's definitely a bit cooler with just having the external coil. So that one would probably be better for cooking food on, because you're not scorching the bejesus out of it, whereas that one's going to be better for boiling water because it's a little hotter. I'll blow that one out in a minute, because I don't really need 2 flames right now. So yeah, I've just blown that one out. Now blowing them out, you really would be better to make a snuffer out of tin foil or anything and just cut the air off and put them, because when you blow them out, what you've got to do is slowly increase the pressure of blowing it, the ferocity of it, because you've got to cool the wick down to get the wax to go out, and obviously they're quite hot, so you've got to slowly cool that wick. This light's making me look very pale. So you would be better off snuffing it, because you can't just go really hard, because if you do, you're just going to blow melted wax everywhere. Sorry, I'll talk to my camera. So that worked great. Got me brew. Some funny camera angles. It's a bit tight in the garage. Now, as I said earlier, blowing them out, you have to blow it until it's cool to put it out. So I've actually just relit it. I had actually extinguished it, but I've just relit it to show you this, because all I've done is fold up tin foil nice and round, about the shape of the top of a tuna can, to make a snuffer, to put it out in a better fashion. With the snuffer, it actually doesn't smoke as much when it goes out, and you don't blow wax everywhere. So it's quite smoky at the moment, but if you'd seen it when you blow them out, it is ridiculously smoky. And as you see, that puts it out instantaneously. Excuse me. And once that's cooled a little bit, you can stuff your snuffer in between the two, ready to put out whichever one that you need to extinguish. And that is pretty much that, as they say. Like I say, it's not really a new idea with the whole tuna can things. I've never seen anybody do this with them yet. That doesn't mean somebody hasn't. It's not like I sat googling it or checking YouTube to see if they had or they hadn't. So as far as I know, this was my idea. If it's not, oh well. We'll share ideas. That's bushcraft in a nutshell. There's very few things that are new in bushcraft, is there? But that is a Bosun Dan take on the classic tuna can stove. A bit more practical than the standard idea. Now, don't get me wrong, you can achieve a cup of coffee or a tin of soup or a roasted steak just as easily with 4 sticks stabbed in the ground and a tuna can underneath it. So you don't have to go to this whole elaborate little stove layout if you don't wish to. You can just have the can with the wick, poke some sticks in the ground to stand your can on, and it would, bob a job, it would work. But as an actual camp stove for maybe cooking a little bit more elaborate things, or if you want to boil a kettle at the same time as you cook, this gives you options, and naturally you can expand this idea, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, you can do whatever on earth you would wish to do with it. So if you didn't need a twin burner, hey, just make one. If you want to go full Gordon Ramsay on it, maybe make a 4-hob or something like that. But you've seen me do it, and you've seen the best bits of advice that I can come up with, really, which one key thing is maybe a thicker baseboard. It'll give you a lot more playability with your screws and what height you can set them to. And obviously this thing, you can store it in the woods because it's wax. It's not going to be affected by getting damp or anything like that. And if somebody discovers your spot and steals your cooker, well, what is it, 16 screws and some tin foil and a piece of wood, some tuna cans of wax, you've not lost anything. It's not like you've left an expensive folding stove and somebody's pinched that. And obviously the advantage is you're not constantly carrying it in, carrying it out. So that's my take on the tuna stove anyway. I hope that's of some use to some of you. Other than that, guys, that is all from Bosun Dan. So get yourselves out there, get building, get bushcrafting, get modifying old ideas. See if anybody else has got any creative stove ideas. I do have some more creative stove ideas we'll run through in a week or two. Problem I'm having is I've got that many video ideas now that are turning into like little mini series. I can't keep on top of that. It's still smoke. That's what I mean about it being an outdoor stove. It is a smoky thing. But other than that, guys, that's all from Bosun Dan. So I will catch you on the next one.